Hello everybody, my name is Laura. You're watching the Beanbird 2 channel where we talk about testimonies and the goodness of God. And today I want to share a testimony about worship. So around the year 2003-2004 was the time when I learned about Destin, Florida. People had told me that it had Caribbean waters and it was calm water, it's beautiful, white sand beaches, a beautiful place to go. Well, ever since that time frame, I wanted to go to Destin, Florida. But my husband and I had young kids, and Destin is about a 10-hour drive, and so it just never seemed like that was the right time to go. But finally, our kids were old enough to do a big trip, and we decided we were going to make that trip to go to Florida. So we went to Destin, and the idea was that we were going to go during my birthday week. So I was super excited about celebrating my birthday at the beach at Destin, where I'd been wanting to go for like 20 years. So we finally get there, and the day of my birthday, it's just pouring rain. One of those all-day drizzles. It wasn't even like a really cool storm, because I can really like a good storm, but it wasn't even like that. It was just like this drizzle of rain, and the sky was bleh, and the beaches were empty because everybody was inside, and it was really looking like the whole day was going to be a washout. I was looking at the hourly forecast, and it was just rain, 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 rain. So we were all kind of hanging out at the condo. We had a condo on the waterfront and looking out and seeing how we really couldn't do anything and we didn't really have anywhere to go. And so the more we laid around the condo, the more sad and depressed everybody seemed to get. It just seemed to be like, ugh, and it just got worse and worse the more time got by, and then people's attitudes started deteriorating, and I myself was guilty of feeling super disappointed because I was like, really? This is the weather on my birthday? And but there was a point where I decided, you know what? I am going to go out on the beach anyway. I'm going to go in the rain. And so I told my family, I just want to be alone, but I'm going to go on the beach in the rain. And they were like, okay, knock yourself out. So I went out there in the rain. It was the beginning of May. And I stood on the beach and I was just watching the water, and I thought, I'm going to take this time to pray in the rain. And I didn't really have any expectations in this worship time. And I just started singing lyrics to songs that I had memorized, and I was worshiping the Lord. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to let this weather stop me. I'm going to worship through the rain, through this, bad environment that I'm in. I'm going to push through and I'm going to worship the Lord anyway. And what was really amazing was after a short few songs of me singing, in outside. I mean, it was nice, one, to be able to sing outside in the beach when nobody's around. Because this time of year, usually the beaches are full of people and you don't really have that opportunity. But with the rain, I mean, I could look to the right and to the left and there was not a soul to be seen. And so I could sing to my heart's content as loud as I wanted, sing whatever I wanted, and nobody was judging me or listening to me but the Lord. But while I was singing, I noticed that the sky, which was all gray, you couldn't even see the sky. It was just like a gray cloud of blankets. There was like a little blue circle of a sky peeking through. And I kept singing and worshiping, and I was like, oh wow, look, a little blue patch. And then the blue patch got bigger and bigger and bigger, and then I could see it clearing up like around me. But the way it was too, I could see the rain and the clouds in the distance. Have you ever seen like far away rain clouds and you can see like the gray, very distant rain? And I could see that it was raining like all around me, but the area where I was turned to be a blue sky. And then when the blue sky came, the sun came in through the clouds, and the sun was shining down. And I knew, because I look at the hourly forecast, that God was responding to my worship on the beach. And I knew that he was like parting the clouds and the sun was coming out. And I just really believed that that was the Lord's response to worship. And I kind of marveled at that. But then what was even more amazing is that while I was there and still, enjoying this time of prayer and worship, when the sun came out, I saw that people started coming out of their condos and hotels. And little by little, the beach started filling up again, and people were bringing out their chairs and bringing out their umbrellas, and I saw people coming out. And I had this thought come into my head that my praise and worship changed the atmosphere. And when the atmosphere changed, the people came out, and it changed the whole beach. And it's amazing how worship can really change the atmosphere, even the worship of one person. And I was looking at these people and I thought, probably a lot of these people aren't believers. Some of them are, some aren't, but they all are coming out into the sun not knowing that what it was that caused the sun to come out, And I thought about how, the sun shines on everyone, right? Well, as long as people are on the earth, the good, the bad, the ugly, like the Lord's sun shines on the whole earth. And I thought about how one person as a Christian can change that environment, and it changes the people around and their responses and the way that they react. And so as I was thinking all that, I also had this other story to share that was about, I used to volunteer at a church in Awana. I have an Awana program. If you don't know what that is, it's like the Baptist, it's kind of like a Sunday school. They usually meet on Wednesdays or Sunday nights, and they have elementary age kids get together and they learn memory verses, and they do a gym time, and they have craft, and it's just a fun time for the kids to learn the Bible. And there was a time when I was serving in that environment, they asked me if I would volunteer to do the 4th and 5th graders. And of course I said yes. But once I started volunteering in that area, I learned that I didn't really have anything to do in that classroom. There was a main teacher, and she was very good, very gifted, very talented at engaging the children. And most of the time that I was there, I ended up just sitting there in the room as support. And by support, it meant like maybe I would help some kids with their memory verses. But for the most part, I just sat in a chair and listened to the teacher teach. And I thought for a while, like, me being here is pointless. Why am I doing this? I'm sitting in this chair. I'm not doing anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm not providing any value. And I think sometimes when we serve in church, or maybe even in your workplace, it can feel like I'm not doing anything. But then, so I started to kind of complain to my kids and be like, I don't know if I should do this volunteer role anymore. I'm not really doing anything but sitting there with everybody else, and I'm not really providing any value. And my kids said something that really struck me. They said, you sitting there in the room changes the atmosphere. And I was like, wow, like, they blew me away with that statement. And I think that that's so true, because when we have the light in us, even just sitting somewhere, it changes the environment around us. And it should. If we have the Holy Spirit inside of us, then of course wherever we go is going to be different, because we're bringing the Holy Spirit into that environment. And then when the year was over, I was amazed at how much the kids around me in the classroom that I was in were like, thanks for helping us this year. And I'm thinking, I didn't really do anything but sit here. But they were glad that I was in the room. And then there would be like a time where I would miss because I'd be absent. And the teacher would say, oh, when you were gone, everybody missed you so much. And so I just want to say that, because there might be times where you feel unappreciated, or maybe you feel like you're not providing any value, but you are just by being somewhere, just by providing, the light of Jesus that's in your heart, even when it doesn't feel like it. But there is also another benefit. Even though in that season it seemed like I didn't really do much, later on, when we changed churches and we were investing in a different place, I started doing kids ministry again. And I initially thought, I'm not going to do Wednesday night kids because I did that before and I want to take a break, and I'm not going to do that. But there was an opportunity where a teacher was sick and they needed somebody to fill in, and they were like, I wonder if Laura could do it. So they called me to come in and help with that one Wednesday night. And when I sat there in that chair, I felt like the Lord spoke to my heart, you're going to do this. And initially I was like, no, I thought I was done with kids' church. But I knew that I had heard from the Lord that that was going to be where I was going to go. So I went to the leader and I said, if you have an opening in kids' church, I feel like, this is a role that the Lord would like me to be in. And they said at the time that they were full. And I thought, okay, well, just keep me in mind. I still believed that the Lord had told me that He wanted me for that role, though. And so I thought, I'm curious to see how this plays out. Well, just a short time later, 6 months or so goes by, and one of the leaders quit. Nothing bad, just, going on to something else. And they had an opening. And then they remembered that I had volunteered to fill a role if it became available. So they contacted me and they said, we know what we told you that we didn't have an opening, but turns out that we do now. Are you still interested? And I knew that I needed to say yes because I knew that the Lord was calling me to that ministry. And so when I started filling that role, I realized that all those years that I sat under that other teacher, just sitting in a chair watching her teach, I was able to apply those things to this season of my life that I was in. So even though it might feel like at that time I thought I'm providing no value in this environment, but what I didn't realize is that just sitting in the room, I was learning under another teacher in the way that she handled the classroom, the way that she talked to the children, the way that she engaged with them. I was picking all those things up consciously and subconsciously. So then in the next season, when the Lord put me in that role, I was fully knowledgeable and had been trained on how to act in that environment. And so sometimes we're just being prepared for the next season, and that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I want to mention is I watch the Watchman River channel. Shout out to Watchman River. We love you, Tom. And in his channel, he had said something that I thought was so good. And I just want to repeat it here because it's totally relevant to the idea of worship and serving. Is that he said if we think of ourselves as a cup, and if you have a cup and you can fill it with the best beverage you can imagine, whatever you like, if it's orange juice or hot chocolate or a nice cup of coffee or hot tea, and you're like, oh, that sounds so good, that beverage sounds so amazing. But after you consume the beverage, you have an empty cup. And the empty cup in itself doesn't really have, a lot to offer you. But when you pour into it, you're filling that cup with, a tasty beverage. And it's not a perfect analogy, but what I'm trying to say is that when we fill ourselves with the Holy Spirit, we're filling our vessel with, God's goodness and His love. And when we just keep praying for the Lord to fill us with His Holy Spirit, and we can pour out to other people what's inside of us. And whether that's, serving and ministry or worshiping on the beach, all this ties together to just say that the Lord, He hears our worship. He hears our worship in the rain. He knows our heart and He responds. And also that when we're serving, even if we don't feel like we're doing anything, the Lord is working things out and He's training us for the next season, for the next place that we'll go, so that we can be ready for the role that He has for us. Sometimes my teenage son, he complains that he's too young and he wishes he was born a long time ago so he'd be older in this season so he could do more. And I always tell him, look, the Lord decided that you were going to be born in 2008, and that was for a reason. And you are this age now on purpose. God has a plan for your life, and His plan is that, you are, 15-year-old boy at this season. If He wanted you to be a 34-year-old man in this season, He would have made you be born at a different time. And so we need to trust in the Lord and His plan and what He has for us, that He has us exactly where He wants us to be in history, and He's training us and guiding us and protecting us for the season and the work that He has for us in the future. So I hope that encourages you today, and I will see you tomorrow.